Hi everybody, and welcome to Innovation Tech Community. And today, the last episode of this Global AI Summit Season One. So today we have the Dwayne Natwick from USA, our expert speaker. So hi Dwayne.
Hello, how are you doing today?
Yeah, so he needs to talk about this how machine learning and AI influence the cloud security and governance and everything. So we need that the cloud security and governance is very important. What are the product we need to use in the daily life, and so we need to know everything from the advan. So I'm Pratap. I'm Azure MVP, Azure AI MVP. So our expert speaker, the Dwan Network, is the CEO and founder of the Captain Hyperscale, and so I would like to know from the Dwan network as well. Okay, so over to you, Dwan. So let's get started.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Pratap.
Yeah, yeah,
All right. So welcome everybody to the Global AI Summit, and thank you very much for having me and having me as a speaker here today. I am going to talk about how AI and machine learning influence cloud security and governance. And just to give a little bit of background to me, as Pratap said, I am CEO and owner of Captain Hyperscaler. We are a training provider for cybersecurity and cloud transformation. We try to help to build a very highly skilled workforce with your organizations. I'm also a Microsoft MVP for security and Azure. I'm also an AWS community builder for security and identity. I author content. I author training books, and I also have multiple certifications in both Microsoft as well as ISC2, Asaka, AWS, CompTIA, pretty much everywhere at this point. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and a regional lead for that program as well. And you can reach me on the social media links provided in here, as well as if you're watching this on LinkedIn Live, you can find me as the presenter for this as well. And feel free to connect. So, what are we going to talk about today? When we're talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning, it's not just an aspect of how we protect. It's how attackers are coming at us, and how we are. We've got to defend ourselves against AI and machine learning, and we're using AI and machine learning in a way to defend against those attackers as well, and a lot of those AI and machine learning attacks. So we're going to talk about both sides of the spectrum here today, where we're going to discuss and start with attackers and how they use AI and machine learning. Then we're going to talk about some areas of AI and machine learning that we can use for security and governance. And knowing what it can do, we need to know what it can't do as well, and what it cannot do. And so then we'll talk about some Microsoft solutions and talk about different SIEM and SOAR solutions and how they are used for machine learning and AI. And we'll jump in and throughout and show some of those solutions within Microsoft, and give you an idea of how the process works within some of the solutions within Microsoft and within Azure to provide defense with AI and machine learning. So let's start off with just kind of how do attackers use AI and machine learning? Because if we are trying to protect ourselves, the best way to protect ourselves is to know who we need to protect against and what's going on in terms of what the attackers are using and how these attackers are coming in. So we need to be a good blue team, purple team, red team aspect of cybersecurity to understand where our vulnerabilities are, where attacks may be coming in, and how they're going to be executed. And so, what do they do, and what do attackers do to come in and use AI and machine learning techniques to gain access to our systems or block our systems. The first one on here, the distributed denial of service attacks. Those are generally not somebody that's just sending that's typing away on a keyboard, those are generally going to be attacks that are launched by AI bots. They're going to program a bot or a number of bots that are going to flood those synchronization attacks, those requests and acknowledgement attacks to our internet service provider, and block and just flood our network. So we need to make sure that we are watching for those attacks. And one of the nice things, and we'll get into this within the cloud service providers, is they look for that to happen as well. And I'll explain that later on in the presentation. IoT botnet attacks, very similar to a distributed denial of service, where they're going to flood our IoT and our operational technology, so that we aren't getting that information as well as maybe ways, trying to get into that information and utilize, take control of those operational technologies that are on the edge of our systems and the edge of our networks, to try and get into our networks as well. Social engineering, detecting common behavior, watching and lurking in the background, watching, capturing keyboard entry techniques, and looking, trying to find common passwords, and using those to get into our systems as well. Identifying vulnerabilities, using bots to sweep through our all the ports out there, all the IP addresses, trying to find those types of attacks are important as well. There's a question here I saw. What do you think about AI taking over human jobs? That's an interesting question, and one that obviously is very popular, a very popular comment around around social media lately, with all of the AI conversation, all the commercials on television and things like that. I don't see AI taking over human jobs, and we'll talk a little bit more about what AI can't do, and why humans are still going to be necessary. AI. One of the kind of main foundational things to think about is that AI is only as good as the person that's creating that AI technology, creating that machine learning technology. So that is going to still be a job. It's I'm in Michigan in the USA, so the automotive capital of the US, right? So I use a lot of automotive type of analogies when I speak, and one of those around things, and I have this conversation when I'm talking about going from a on-premises data center to cloud, or from a from cyber, traditional data center cybersecurity to cloud security. How's that going to affect my job? What it's going to require us to do, and a reason why so many people are looking to learn more about open AI and AI solutions, is that it requires us to just learn new skills. And the same conversation goes along with gas-powered cars versus gas-powered automobiles versus battery-powered automobiles. You still have a manufacturing process that's in place and that's going to be necessary. It's just what you're manufacturing, and if you're not willing to evolve and learn, then you're going to be left behind, and somebody else is going to take that job from you. And that's really what it comes down to. And it's the same thing when it comes to AI and machine learning techniques. If you're not skilling yourself up and learning to be more agile in your own education about AI, you're going to be left behind, and that's where you're going to lose your job. Somebody else is going to take that job because they know more about AI, rather than necessarily AI taking over your job. And so that's my thoughts and really kind of an opinion around it. But the jobs are still going to be there. Yeah, I mean, there are going to be people that are more efficient around those jobs and around those areas. So I'll get to some, what strategies can organizations can adopt to leverage AI and machine learning effectively. I'll get to that a little bit more and make sure that I talk about that when I further on in the presentation. So that's a very good question. Thank you very much. So just to kind of wrap up, how do attackers use AI? Obviously, brute force attacks and dictionary attacks. Somebody's not sitting in there trying to logging into using password 123 or happy birthday as a password. They're using bots and AI to run through those passwords. Malware, mutating software, obviously, it has a level of machine learning trying to work through that, as well as data manipulation. So those are kind of the aspects of how attackers use AI. So let's talk a little bit about machine learning and AI for governance, which goes right along with that question that was asked just a moment ago. So how can services benefit? How can AI and machine learning benefit your security and your security controls? We have the capability to use, and that's in Microsoft, and there's capabilities within AWS and Google. But this being the Azure AI Summit, we'll keep it to Azure in this conversation. We'll get to some of the broader aspects later on here today, but analyzing mobile inputs, what's the attack surface, and analyzing, looking for anomalies, detecting that malicious activity that we talk, those things that we talked about, like brute force attacks, and we'll talk more about that. Human behavior analysis, knowing what users are doing on a regular basis, and trying to then using AI and machine learning to identify when that becomes different than the typical. I sit at my, on my IP address at one computer all day long, every day, for the most part. If I deviate from that, I go somewhere else, take that laptop somewhere else, I should be getting some sort of alert that, hey, this is atypical behavior, and what's going on. Data loss prevention programs and things like that are looking for atypical behavior that is not normal, and that's that human behavior analysis aspect of things. Detecting and closing zero-day vulnerabilities, using automation and playbooks and things like that in SOAR-based solutions to detect and find potential threats when they've become those from a zero-day vulnerability standpoint. They haven't come out on the threat intelligence feeds yet, but we want to find that vulnerable behavior, find that vulnerability, and close that down very quickly. Automating repetitive tasks. Like I said, we'll talk about SOAR solutions and SIEM solutions later on. Automating detection, automating remediation, all those automate. AI and machine learning make us more efficient and allow us to learn in those automated process. And so, those become very important in the aspects of AI and machine learning. And now back to the question around addressing concerns related to transparency, accountability, and bias. Those are very important aspects of and a key pillar when you're designing something that has AI and machine learning in it, is that we want to make sure that we are avoiding those areas of bias. And kind of back to that whole, is AI taking over human jobs? AI is only as good as the human beings that are designing it. So an aspect that I always say when somebody brings up, transparency, accountability, avoiding bias, is that the design and the creation of whatever you're utilizing and design and developing with AI and machine learning in it is done from different perspectives. You need to have that level of perspective from multiple geographies and multiple cultures, rather than it just being one single culture, one single environment. Somebody in the U.S. and their ability to develop something on an AI platform for the standards, the culture of the United States is going to be different than it's going to be for the culture of India. You should have a mixture of those cultures in the development process, and that's going to be first and foremost probably the best way to maintain that responsible AI aspect of things. And again, we're not taking over anybody's jobs; we're actually creating more jobs in that aspect as well. If we're developing AI solutions in a more responsible way. So that kind of also gets into what AI can't do. And again, AI is only as good as it's designed and it's developed, and it's not going to protect us against human error or human. Trying to find a better word than ignorance, but because that's kind of a negative way of saying it, but uninformed human beings, not doing proper training and awareness campaigns and phishing campaigns and things of that nature. That is a way that they will that an attacker can leverage and kind of get around automated technologies and AI and machine learning capabilities, because they can do a phishing type attack, a voice phishing attack, to try and social engineer somebody into giving their passwords. They can send malicious links that allow to harvest those types of attacks. They can use certain manual man in the middle type of attacks to gather credentials, and therefore circumvent certain situations. What I was explaining prior in terms of how we build automation and things like that, if we are doing behavior analysis, that might help us a little bit, but it's still, if somebody's giving away the credentials, that is a problem. So awareness campaigns are still going to be very important again. And generally those awareness campaigns are going to have to be built and designed and developed by humans, and keep that in play. Another question here: how can AI-driven predictive analytics be used to forecast and proactively address emergent security risks in cloud deployments? That's another really good question. So when we're thinking about AI, and let's put a pin in that one, hold off on that one for a second, because we're going to talk about some of the Microsoft solutions, and I think some of that will come to light when we're talking about Microsoft solutions that use AI. But that's a very good question in terms of how AI can be used, and how that predictive aspect of things is going to help us be proactive and stay in front of potential risks. So some of the security solutions, and obviously Microsoft has a full portfolio of security solutions and capabilities to protect for your AI and machine, utilizing AI and machine learning for security and governance. I have some listed here. We'll look at some of them towards the end of the presentation, but Microsoft Sentinel utilizes and allows us to use scripting within it to hunt for and look for anomalous behavior within our environment. Defender for Cloud, looks at those risks, looks at potential vulnerabilities in our development and our secrets and our code through the Defender for the security. What is it called now? It's called Defender for developers, I believe it's called now, or secure development. They got away from the Defender for DevOps, I believe, is and Defender XDR, Entra ID, identity protection. The identity protection aspect of things gets into that behavior, that behavioral analysis and entity behavior analysis, to watch and to learn from the behaviors of our users, as well as other Defender for endpoint types of capabilities as well that we can do. And then just kind of go out. Excuse me a sec. Just to expand out a little bit further around that Entra ID, the behavior analysis, sign-in risk, user risk, putting conditional access aspects in place become very important to how we are looking at at what's going on in our environment, and we can put different behavioral type access responses into our systems and make sure that we are protecting them. And it gets into that forecasting and that proactively addressing security risks and potential risks that are coming into our environment. So we've got a level of that predictive culture of we're predicting that this person is going to be sitting at this IP address. They're going to log in at approximately this time on a daily basis. We know that is the case. That has been the trend over the last 30 to 60 days. And if we deviate from that, that is going to send some level of alert. Now that level of alert and what happens next then becomes those conditional access policies that we can put in place, or we send an alert to our administrators saying that there's a potential risk here, and the level of risk is going to be different. Generally, I'll see every once in a while one of these in my own environment. Where there's a potential risk here because somebody logged in from a different IP address, or they logged in from a public IP address, and we want to understand is this a risk, and if it is, we are going to investigate it. Generally, I'll see it as a medium risk because I have multi-factor authentication in place. So the fact that somebody tried to use my username to log in isn't necessarily going to be a high level of risk right now because they don't have the ability to provide the multi-factor authentication that is necessary. So those are ways that AI driven and that prediction of what's taking place can proactively address those risks. Now, like I said, those are also emerging risks that we might see within those environments as well, that we're going to talk, that we're going to learn from and use threat intelligence, use the Microsoft network of threat intelligence to understand what emerging risks are, using Microsoft Sentinel to run Python scripts to try and find potential events and the different threat indicators within our environment that are going to be some maybe emerging risks that come into play. Another question that came up around what are challenges and limitations associated with integrating AI and machine learning technologies into cloud security strategies, and how can they be addressed? So the challenges, and it goes back again to we need to understand how those technologies are going to react within our environment and react to our environment. One of the things around conditional access and conditional access policies that is very helpful is the what if aspect of testing, or putting a conditional access policy in report only mode so that it is not necessarily blocking and it avoids those false negatives, or in terms of a user that needs to that should be getting through but can't, and we want to avoid those, obviously, and in some cases that can be the issue with AI and machine learning technologies is you've got somebody that has gone on a trip, and they have taken their laptop, and all of a sudden they're logging in from a different IP address. It's maybe at a hotel, so it's a public IP address, and our behavioral analytics goes off the chart and gets a little concerned about what's taking place, and maybe this person's locked out, and maybe they're on a time zone that they can't get support on. Ways that we can avoid things like that is if we have conditional access policies that don't lock people out but require them to change their password or authenticate with multi-factor authentication. those are going to be strategies that we need to have in place to avoid, to make sure the user experience still is a positive one. Again, Microsoft Sentinel examples, again, data anomalies, identity anomalies, certain things that we've already talked about a little bit here. Again, the user and behavior analytics, using alerts and automation are going to be very helpful in terms of what Microsoft Sentinel can do. And again, we'll look at these here in a moment. I'll quickly within the portals to kind of show, how we can gain some rich information out of this. Defender for cloud, again, looking for common attack vectors, the workload protections that are part of the whole, the expanded beyond the free level of Microsoft Defender for Cloud and the threat intelligence. I've brought this up a couple of times already. Microsoft has a network of threat intelligence groups that are end users, Fortune 1000 users out in the out globally, partners, global system integrators that provide information to Microsoft and build a network of what some of these threats are, what some of the threat indicators are that they're seeing, and allow Microsoft then to build stronger technologies and analytic rules within their own environment, as well as all of us as security practitioners, building new, Python scripts that are going to be able to do searches and things like that. Another question: are there AI techniques that help in ensuring data privacy and regulatory compliance in cloud environments? That's a really, really good question. I'm not sure if I have that in my presentation, but definitely something that I talk about a lot when I'm doing courses on risk management and risk compliance and all of those things. There are AI techniques that you can do. Some of the things that that Microsoft Defender for Cloud does in their standards and compliance area is evaluating based on best practices, and they're using certain techniques to understand when something comes back on board. When you build and you configure new solutions, it's going to evaluate the level of risk and evaluate it against best practices, and whether that's ISO or NIST or maybe just the Microsoft security benchmark, it's looking at those capabilities. Data privacy and regulatory requirements. Data privacy using Microsoft Purview is another solution, and I believe let me see if I don't have Purview in here because it's more of an Azure based, but here's one. Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps is one that uses machine learning and AI techniques to discover the apps that are being used in your environment, understand insider risks, looking for anomalous behaviors such as downloads and deletions of data. You can put access and session policies in place to understand how that information is being accessed, that really help us in regulating compliance based on our apps that are in our environment, as well as the capabilities that we have for in Microsoft DLP for data loss prevention. We can understand how users are interacting with behavior, and again, the behavior analysis and entity analysis of things, and how people are accessing information, how people are supposed to access information, our level of identity and access governance over our users and our resources, on how they interact with data, all become aspects of things that we can utilize. Microsoft Defender for Endpoint has the capability. We put that in place. We use Intune. We can use Microsoft Intune, and we can enforce certain data loss prevention policies in place, as well as the Defender for Cloud Apps capabilities to, again, evaluate those behaviors. And AI and machine learning are all working in the back end to protect against and to govern our data. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is protect our users, protect our data, are the two main things that we need to do. first and foremost, it's user safety and protecting our user environments, as well as as well as protecting our data, making sure our data does not leak, does not go somewhere else. Another question: how can machine learning models be used to strengthen access control and identity management systems in cloud platforms like Azure? Again, that behavioral analytics. Let's jump in here a little bit, just because a lot of questions coming out around that and how that takes place. So let's just take a look here at a couple of things. The key to most of that behavioral analytics aspect of things comes down to our capabilities within Microsoft Entra ID, and how these, for identity and access control, we have a lot of capabilities here in the identity protection aspect of things. Here we got, I've got a number of, here, let's look at the attack that's blocked here in terms of risk detections. Let me go last 90 days here. Saying nothing found. Let me said I had one, but let me see. Maybe it's because it's a low. There we go. So here I've got somebody that is a low, and you can see this was back in early, last week. There was a detection, access using a valid account, but it was that had unfamiliar sign-in properties. So the way that so this is using that behavior analysis, and it's trying to find somebody that is and the interesting thing here is if you're analyzing this and you're looking at this is a person within my organization, and they had been logging in. They're based out of Pennsylvania in the US, and all of a sudden they logged in from Orlando, Florida, and that is what triggered the behavior, the change in behavior and the alert that took place. Now it's a low level alert because there was nothing weird, nothing strange in terms of their sign in. It was determined that it was safe, and so that aspect was put in low. So I actually wasn't alerted on this because I have my alerts set to medium and high, but those become, this is how, if you're part of a larger organization, you might see more and more of these come through. So I'm glad that I had one on here. Every once in a while, I'll get one, especially if I'm doing a lot of Azure training. I'll bring on board some virtual machines for certain labs that are open port 3389, and I'll start seeing, because it's a Microsoft lab, the attack bots are scanning for those particular names of servers, and I'll get a list of brute force attacks. I haven't taught like Azure administration for a bit, so I don't have any of those right now in my environment, but those are ones that I see in my own environment when I'm using this environment for training. Those are things that I see, and those are all aspects of what the behavior analysis is taking place. It's seeing that this was a different behavior. Now, if I wanted to enforce that a little bit more, I could use a user risk or sign-in risk policy to detect and to require different levels of access. User risk policy requires a password change. Sign-in policy requires multi-factor authentication. If I want to get a little bit further into more detail, I can use conditional access policies. And this, what's great about conditional access policies, again, I have a bunch of policies in place. I can put a policy in place, and I can use this what if feature to check users, check service principals, and see how this policy is going to react in different scenarios based on, if I'm blocking a particular device. If I go in here and if I select, let me select myself here, and I won't put an IP address. I can look at a device platform here and do a what if on an Android device. and it comes down here, and I don't have any policies that apply to me because I think I've got myself excluded, but I can see the different policies that do apply. Now, if I put another user here, trying to figure out one, I think I have sales maybe as part of that, and do a what if policy for that one. You can see I have some what if policies that block access because of blocked Android devices and things like that. So, those are some ways that we can use Entra ID and the capabilities within there to look at those policies. Again, if we go, I'm not going to go into Defender for Cloud, but how, another question, another couple questions here. What are some emerging trends or advancements in AI for cloud security and governments? How they might shape future practices? Obviously, from Microsoft as well as Google and AWS are working with and building things within AI. Microsoft, obviously, their relationship with OpenAI are looking and trying to not only use AI for making us more efficient and effective, like with ChatGPT and things of that nature, but they are also utilizing everything in terms of what I was just kind of showing in terms of behavioral and entity analysis is really going into going in the back end to make that better. The analytics within Microsoft Sentinel just continue to grow and to be more efficient and effective. Another question, Ken, asking to discuss the impact of AI and the evolution of cloud security architectures and practices. That's a really, really good question around, and really, our aspect and our capabilities of using like the co-pilots that Microsoft has for development, and using those, but not using, again, this goes back to that first question of are these AI co-pilots going to cost us human jobs? No, because we still have to, anytime I talk about code review, talk about security and development, we need to identify the risks. And the first and foremost, before we start doing any kind of development, we need to know the risks that are potentially there for developing that application. And if we're doing that right, security should be a part of that. And what also goes into that is the risk of using an AI copilot. That we need to make sure that if we're using Copilot to help start our development of an application, maybe it gives us a level of efficiency to it, but we still need to do code reviews. We still need to make sure that there aren't any gaps in our environment when we do utilize AI tools in architecture and development. So it's the same thing if you're utilizing a template that is in that somebody built in GitHub. We still need to do our due diligence and our due care from a security and governance perspective to make sure it complies with our requirements and complies with what we find as our needs from security and governance aspect of things. It's the same thing when we're using AI tools in the development and architectural process. Let's see. How does AI assist in enhancing the resilience and scalability of cloud security infrastructure? Another great question there from the developer aspect of things. We can use co-pilots for developer co-pilots, all of those co-pilots. Everybody gets a co-pilot. I know it was a big joke with in Microsoft Ignite. We want to make sure that we're again evaluating our code, making sure that we are and when we're using those co-pilots and we're using those templates, whether we're using Bicep templates or Terraform templates, we're evaluating and we're building within there. Obviously, we can tell those co-pilots to build a resilient architecture, build a high availability architecture, and build scalability in that. But then we need to review that, make sure that it complies with all of our requirements. Just real quick, I know we're having some great questions and great conversation. I really appreciate that. Just kind of take some of that in terms of how we evaluate threats in the threat landscape. We obviously, AI and automation has become, we've gone from being a very manual aspect of watching, and using logs and tools to aggregate logs, into now automating all of that. Just a lot on this slide, but just really shows the threat landscape, because we're becoming more sophisticated from a security perspective, but the attackers are becoming more sophisticated as well. So you can see, as we went more into the internet, the threat landscape has expanded, but also our ability and our tools have expanded as well. So we want to make sure, and here's some examples of how AI models can detect threats and find rogue software. We mentioned data leakage, and how we can protect against privacy. Data exfiltration techniques, like I said, Defender for cloud apps, data loss prevention capabilities. We can understand that, hey, this user needs, these users, or our entire organization needs to adhere to GDPR, or this particular group is handling financial information. We can understand that, and we can use AI and machine learning to understand the different types of documents that might potentially have that information. What is the role of AI against attacks and threats? Here, kind of, the unknown threat actors and the unknown attacks is really where artificial intelligence and machine learning and really becomes a important aspect to understanding and to expanding our capability to protect our organization. We can build lots of rules and use cases and policies, and use our traditional, identity prevention systems and antivirus and malware detection systems, use threat intelligence feeds. But when that all turns into a new attack, and finding something that's anomalous in our environment, that's where artificial intelligence and machine learning really become helpful. Another question, can you please let me know the role of AI in enhancing the visibility and control over cloud assets and configuration to mitigate security risks? Let me think about that one for a second, because that's not something in my, but it's not something in this presentation, so I got to just kind of go to my Rolodex in my head a little bit about it. That's a definite, obviously, in terms of config, this kind of goes into the role again of what I was saying about risk. And if I was doing this presentation from a risk management perspective, the ability to understand risk and evaluate the assets that are in our environment, and then manage our configuration, and having configuration management involved. We can use AI again to find behavior outside of our policies and procedures, or outside of our risk appetite, to again enhance that control over our assets. If we're building a strong risk aware organization, then we are going to mitigate our risks using AI. And again, using things like Microsoft Sentinel or Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Microsoft Defender for Cloud has that capability within the Defender for developers, that for developer security, that can help alleviate some of those configuration risks that we have, utilizing and looking for, again, behavior outside of our norm. just kind of think, get to kind of a little bit into that automation of things as well, blocking attackers, doing a level of containment of those attackers in terms of risk response. Again, we could build analytic tools and use AI and machine learning from a configuration standpoint. It looking over our assets and responding, sending and using. Again, if you look on here, we have responders. It's AI and SOAR solutions and anything that's using AI and machine learning for automation is not going to replace the responders that are going to need to analyze and check for false positives, false negatives, those things. Obviously, we're going to get better and better to fine tune those, but it's about learning. And there's a reason why companies like mine exist to provide learning and provide workshops and challenge based learning and real world type hackathons that make you think and evolve in your thinking to these new threats and to the new technologies that are available to you. And again, the support for multi-cloud, obviously AWS and GCP. Microsoft does a very good job of being multi-cloud and not just sticking with the data and the information that is in your Azure, Microsoft 365, Dynamics environments, but also in your AWS buckets, in your Google projects and things like that. So great questions and great interaction. I really appreciate everybody's questions here today. Just to kind of sum things up, we talked a lot about AI and machine learning, a lot of questions about architecture, and next time I do have some topics that I've talked about around zero trust and architecture for with and building those within AI. Obviously, a lot of interest in Copilot and all of those things. So I really like the questions that we had and the interactions that we had here today. But hopefully you all come away with a new understanding and a new learning about AI and machine learning around cloud and security governance. So I want to thank the organizers and Pratap for having me at the Global AI Summit. Feel free to connect with me on social media and ask any follow-up questions that you may have after we're done today.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dwayne. So that was really awesome. So we have lots of comments from the audience as well. So they ask me, even I'm also surprised. So they asking the several questions regarding this architecture and the cloud security as well. Yeah. So yeah, guys, and if you if you have any questions regarding this particular session, feel free to connect with Dwayne. So he's ready to give you the feedback to all particular questions as well. And so if you have doubts and everything related to that one, so please feel to reach out to Dwayne, or else reach out to me and I will forward to Dwayne. So probably next season also that Dwayne will become, and he will gather the lots of information to us to share with us and have a so let's chit chat with another session. Dwayne, anything else to share with us?
No, I love the interaction and the continued questions. Like I said, we're talking about cloud governance. A lot turned into an architecture and development discussion, but certainly gives me some ideas for some future talks.
Yeah, that was great. So we, even though audience also very much passionate about this. New technologies as well. Yeah.
Yep.
So thank you so much, advance. So if you are accepting my request for this global AI summit, so thank you so much for this opportunity to showcase your talent. Insight to our global AI summit and innovation tech community. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks everybody. Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Yeah.